Garrett Stone had 3 hours to kill before his next freight run to the Outer Rim territories. 3 hours on Nexus Station, the biggest commercial hub in 5 sectors, with nothing but empty corridors, in the kind of crushing loneliness that made even a talking bird seem like good company. He adjusted his worn leather jacket and pushed through the crowd. Beings of every conceivable shape and shaitan pressed against him. The air tasted of ozone and alien sweat, and something that reminded him uncomfortably of burnt rubber. His boots echoed on metal grating as he followed the flickering holographic signs toward the entertainment district. Exotic pets and companions. The words glowed above a massive archway in cheerful blue letters. Garrett grinned. Perfect. Maybe one of those crystalline cats that supposedly predicted hyperspace storms. Something to fill the silence during those long hauls through empty space. Something to make the Lone Star feel less like a tomb and more like a home. The archway opened into a cathedral of commerce. Tiered seating rose in concentric circles around a central platform. Transparent containment fields shimmered with soft blue light. Inside those fields stood beings, living beings, some with scales, some with fur, some that looked almost human except for the wrong number of limbs or eyes that held too much understanding. Garrett's grin died. This wasn't a pet shop. Welcome, welcome. A slug-like creature the size of a small car oozed across the platform. Its translator collar rendered wet gurgles into cheerful standard. I am Vex, your auctioneer for today's premium biological acquisitions. Remember, all sales are final. Health certificates provided upon request. Let's begin. Garrett should have left, should have turned around and walked straight back to his ship, should have pretended he never saw what he was seeing. Instead, he sank into a seat in the back row. Between a mantis thing wearing enough jewelry to buy a small planet and something that looked like an upright walrus in a business suit, his hands clenched into fists as the first lot appeared in the containment field. 6-limbed humanoids with iridescent skin. Vex described them as excellent domestic service units. Potential buyers shouted numbers in various alien currencies. The bidding climbed higher. The 6-limbed beings stood perfectly still. Their faces showed nothing. But Garrett caught the tremor in their hands, the slight widening of eyes when the winning bidder stepped forward to claim his property. Lot after lot appeared. Lot after lot was sold. Garrett sat frozen, watching, unable to look away, unable to process that this was happening, that this was legal, that beings were being traded like cargo manifests and spare parts. Then came Lot 17. Vex slithered to the center of the platform. His eye stalks quivered with theatrical enthusiasm. Ladies and gentlemen, and honored beings of all classifications, I present to you something truly special. A genuine Valkyrie female, designation XC7742, enhanced strength protocols, military-grade genetic engineering, unfortunately oversized for standard reproduction parameters. The containment field shimmered. She materialized like a goddess carved from amethyst and fury. Garrett's breath caught in his throat. She towered nearly twice his height. Her purple skin gleamed under the auction lights like polished stone. Massive chains bound her wrists and ankles, connected to a restraint harness that looked like it belonged on a starship engine rather than a living being. Her face could have been sculpted by masters. High cheekbones, full lips, eyes the color of quicksilver that swept across the crowd with barely contained rage. But it was the mark on her forehead that made Garrett's hands clench until his knuckles went white. A glowing red brand, spelling out one word in Imperial Standard: slaughter. Now I know what you're thinking. Vex continued his pitch with the enthusiasm of a man selling industrial equipment. What do you do with a Valkyrie too big to breed? Well, friends, the answer is simple. Premium protein. The exotic meat trade pays top dollar for grade A specimens like this one. Vex gestured with multiple appendages toward the woman. Look at those thighs, those shoulders. Conservative estimate puts her at 800 kilograms of the finest cuts in the galaxy. Neural cord severing ensures optimal meat tenderness. Fresh kill preferred, of course, but we can arrange flash freezing for transport if needed. Excited chittering erupted from a cluster of insectoid buyers near the front. One raised a clawed appendage. Fresh kill only, or will you process fresh kill, is always preferred. Vex confirmed with a wet gurgle that his translator rendered as cheerful agreement. maintains that optimal texture. Bidding starts at 50,000 credits. The numbers climbed. 55, 60, 65. Garrett watched her face, the woman they were discussing, like a dinner menu, like meat on a scale, like 800 kilograms of product to be carved and consumed. Her expression never changed. Stone-faced indifference. But he saw it, the slight tremor in her chained hands, the way her jaw tightened just a fraction when someone asked about liver reservation. Something inside Garrett's chest cracked, clean and sharp, like ice breaking under pressure. He thought of Jessie, his sister, 24 years old when she died covering her unit's retreat during the frontier conflicts. She'd had that same look in her final transmission. That refusal to break, that determination to face death standing up with dignity intact. Even when the universe was burning around her, even when she knew she wasn't walking away. Jessie had chosen to fight, chosen to protect, chosen to matter. This woman in chains, this warrior marked for slaughter. She had that same fire in her quicksilver eyes, that same unbowed spine. 70,000, a corpulent creature resembling a diseased toad raised multiple arms. But I want the liver reserved for my private collection. Noted. Vex's eye stalk swiveled. Liver reserved for buyer designation Glor 9. Do I hear 75? Garrett found himself standing. His brain hadn't caught up with his mouth yet. His entire body moved on instinct in something deeper than thought. 100,000. The auction hall fell silent. Every eye stalk and sensory organ swiveled toward him. Even the woman in chains turned her head. Those mercurial eyes locked onto his. For a heartbeat, something passed between them. Something electric. Something impossible. Surprise, maybe? Recognition. Hope. Vex's translator crackled with static before resuming. I'm sorry, did the human just bid 100,000 credits? Yeah. Garrett's voice sounded steadier than he felt. His heart hammered against his ribs. His palms were slick with sweat. But his voice stayed level. 100,000 for personal use. More silence. Wrong. Then nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. The mantis thing beside him clicked its mandibles in what might have been amusement. Personal use. That thing would snap you in half, little man. Wouldn't be the first time I dated out of my weight class, Garrett shot back. The laughter grew louder, but he kept his eyes on the woman, on this warrior goddess who'd gone absolutely still, like she was holding her breath, like she was afraid to believe what she was hearing. Personal use, Vex repeated slowly. His tone suggested he was running calculations. Sir, are you familiar with Valkyrie biology? Standard breeding protocols require specialized equipment and genetic compatibility certification. The liability insurance alone. Look, friend, Garrett interrupted. His confidence was growing now, fueled by adrenaline and desperation in the absolute insanity of what he was doing. My refrigerator's too small for 800 kilos of meat anyway, so the living option works better for me. You taking my bid or not? More laughter, louder now. Vex's eye stalks twitched. 100,000 credits is substantial. Do I hear 105? Silence stretched across the hall, long and thick. The toad thing deflated with a wet sigh. Too rich for processed meat. The human can have his expensive pet. Sold. Vex's gavel, a crystalline growth from his own shell, cracked against the platform. Lot 17 goes to the human for 100,000 credits. Please proceed to processing Station 7 for ownership transfer. Garrett's legs felt unsteady as he made his way down the tiers. What the hell had he just done? 100,000 credits. Most of his life savings. Gone in a moment of stupidity. And for what? To save one alien woman from a fate that probably awaited millions of others across the galaxy. But when he reached the floor and looked up at her, at this magnificent, impossible creature who radiated barely contained power even in chains, when he saw the way she was looking at him, not with gratitude, not with submission, with calculation, with the sharp intelligence of someone trying to figure out if she'd just traded one cage for another. He knew he'd made the right choice, even if it was insane, even if it cost him everything. Processing Station 7 occupied a sterile alcove filled with holographic forms and scanning equipment. A bored centauroid clerk with too many arms gestured Garrett toward a chair. Standard ownership transfer. Scan your palm here, here, and here. Sign this, initial that. Genetic compatibility waiver goes in the blue folder. Genetic compatibility waiver. Garrett paused, stylus hovering over the datapad. Standard procedure for breeding stock purchases. Protects the seller if your biological systems prove incompatible for reproduction. Just sign, please. I have 17 more transfers before my shift ends. Garrett signed without reading. The forms blurred together. Ownership certificates, transport permits, health documentation. Legal disclaimers in 6 different languages. His hand moved on autopilot while his brain tried to catch up with reality. He just bought a person. Not equipment, not cargo, a person. The weight of that hit him like a physical blow. When he looked up, they were bringing her through a security checkpoint. Still chained, no longer in the containment field. She moved over the transport guards with lethal grace. Each step deliberate, each movement economical. The guards kept their energy weapons trained on her, their fingers white-knuckled on the triggers. They were terrified of her. She noticed it too. He could see the slight curl of her lip, the dark amusement in her silver stare. Congratulations on your purchase. The clerk handed Garrett a data pad thick with documentation. The subject is now your legal property under Imperial Commercial Code Section 7G. Transport, housing, and disposal are your responsibility. Enjoy your acquisition. Property. The word tasted like acid. Garrett approached slowly, hyper-aware of the guard's nervous energy. Up close, she was even more breathtaking and more intimidating. Her wrists were raw where the restraints bit into violet skin. The brand on her forehead cast red shadows across features that belonged in a museum. Not in chains, not marked for death. So, he said quietly, his voice barely carrying over the station's ambient noise. I guess we should talk. Her voice hit him like controlled thunder, deep and rich and absolutely commanding. You purchased me to mock me. Actually, Garrett kept his tone light despite the weight of her stare, despite the very real possibility that she could kill him with one hand if those chains came off. I purchased you to keep you from becoming somebody's dinner. Though I gotta admit, I didn't really think this through. My ship's not exactly built for passengers your size. The question carried centuries of pain compressed into 2 words. Lifetimes of being used and discarded and valued only for what could be taken from her. Flesh, labor, genetic material, never for who she was. Garrett glanced at the guards, then stepped closer. Close enough that he had to crane his neck back to meet her eyes. Because watching them talk about carving you up made me sick. And because, he paused, surprised by his own honesty. Because you look like you were ready to fight, even chained up. I respect that. For a moment her mask slipped. He glimpsed something vulnerable beneath the stone facade. Hope, maybe, or desperate confusion. The look of someone who'd been drowning for so long they'd forgotten what air tasted like. Then the station's intercom blared. Attention all personnel. Imperial Security Protocol 7 is now in effect. All biological transport permits are subject to immediate inspection. This is not a drill. The guards snapped to alertness. Red warning lights began flashing throughout the processing area. Garrett felt his stomach drop as he remembered the clerk's board efficiency, all those forms he'd signed without reading, all that documentation he'd approved without understanding. Oh shit, he muttered. Problem? Her tone carried dark amusement, possibly a big one. Garrett pulled out his comm unit as armored figures began moving through the crowd. Imperial security, scanning documents, checking permits, moving methodically toward their position. How fast can you run in those chains? Fast enough. The promise in her voice made him believe it. Then we might want to consider leaving. Soon. An Imperial security officer approached their group, scanner in hand, expression unreadable behind a helmet visor. Biological transport permit inspection. Present your documentation immediately. Garrett handed over the datapad, tried to project casual confidence, like he transported large purple women across Imperial space every day. Like this was completely routine. The officer's scanner chirped as it processed the forms, chirped again, then began emitting a high-pitched whine that made everyone in the area look up. Sir, the officer's voice carried the mechanical precision of someone reading charges from a script. According to this documentation, you have just purchased 800 kilograms of unlicensed biological materials or for transport across Imperial space, without proper health certification, without breeding permits, without genetic compatibility verification. This constitutes biological contraband smuggling, a Class 7 felony. Now hold on, Garrett began. You are under arrest pending investigation. The officer's hand moved toward restraints. The specimen will be confiscated and destroyed according to Imperial Health Protocol 47. Like hell, Garrett said. He grabbed her arm, which was like grabbing a tree trunk wrapped in silk and steel. Run. The chains snapped like string when she moved. One moment she was restrained, the next she was flowing through the crowd like purple lightning. Her massive frame should have been clumsy, awkward. Instead, she moved with fluid precision. Guards shouted, reached for weapons. Energy bolts scorched the air where they had been standing a heartbeat before. Garrett sprinted after her, marveling at how someone so large could move so gracefully through the panicking crowd. She cleared a path by existing. Aliens dove aside rather than be trampled by unleashed Valkyrie warrior. This way, Garrett gasped, pointing toward a maintenance quarter. My ship's in Bay 94. More security forces poured into the area. The station's intercom crackled with urgent announcements. Escape biological contraband. Armed smugglers. Seal all docking bays. Garrett's comm unit buzzed with incoming calls from station authority, none of which he intended to answer. They reached the service corridors as blast doors began sealing throughout the station. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red. Garrett's lungs burned as he tried to keep up with her ground-eating stride. She wasn't even breathing hard. Your ship better be fast, she said without sounding winded. Fast enough, he hoped. Question though, any chance you know how to operate a plasma cannon? She glanced down at him, the first real smile he'd seen cross her face. It was keen as a knife and twice as dangerous. I was genetically engineered for war before they decided I'd be better for breeding. What do you think? I think I might actually survive this. They burst into docking bay 94 as klaxons wailed throughout the station. Garrett's ship, the Lone Star, squatted on its landing struts like a mechanical toad. Scarred, patched, and absolutely beautiful in its stubborn ugliness. Home sweet home. Garrett panted, triggering the boarding ramp. Hope you don't mind tight quarters. She had to duck almost double to fit through the airlock. The ship's quarters, designed for human-scale occupants, barely accommodated her frame. She moved carefully, testing each step, studying the cramped interior with professional assessment. Interesting, she murmured. You live alone in this compact space. Compact's one word for it. Garrett hit the bridge running, fingers dancing across startup sequences. I prefer cozy, though that was before I had a house guest who could bench press a shuttlecraft. The Lone Star's engines rumbled to life, reassuring vibration through the deck plates. Through the viewports, Garrett could see Imperial security forces surrounding the docking bay. They had maybe 30 seconds before those blast doors sealed them in permanently. Garrett Stone. She said his name like she was tasting it, testing it. That's your designation. Just Garrett's fine. He strapped himself into the pilot's chair as the ship lifted off. Unless you prefer, hey you or that idiot who bought me. I prefer the idiot who saved me. The docking bay doors began grinding shut. Garrett pushed the throttle forward, sending the Lone Star shooting through the gate with meters to spare. Space opened around them, brilliant with stars and the running lights of countless ships. Freedom, or the beginning of a very long chase. Attention vessel Lone Star. A transmission crackled from Nexus Station. You are ordered to return immediately and submit to Imperial inspection. Failure to comply will result in pursuit and destruction. Garrett switched off the comm. Well, that's not ominous at all. Behind them, sleek Imperial patrol ships launched from the station, like angry wasps. Their weapon systems painted the Lone Star with targeting lasers that turned the cockpit red. 3 ships, maybe more, all faster than his battered freighter, all heavily armed. So, she said, settling into the navigation station that groaned under her weight but held. Where exactly are we going? Garrett engaged the hyperdrive charge sequence. Watched the swarm of pursuit ships growing larger in his rear display. Good question. I was thinking maybe we'd figure that out together. Together, she repeated the word softly, like it was foreign, like she'd never had reason to use it before. The patrol ships opened fire. Energy bolts streaked past the viewport, close enough that Garrett could see the ionization trails, close enough that his shields flared and warning lights screamed across every console. "They're shooting," she observed calmly. "Yeah, they do that." Garrett threw the ship into a rolling dive, his hands moving with practiced precision across the controls. "You said you could operate weapons, Yem. Good, because those controls right there." He gestured toward the auxiliary station. "Those are the plasma cannons, and I really need you to shoot back now." She moved to the weapons console, her massive hands surprisingly delicate as they flew across the interface, familiarizing herself with the layout, understanding the system in seconds. Then her fingers found the firing controls. The Lone Star's plasma cannon spoke. Twin streams of coherent energy reached out across space, tracked the lead patrol ship with impossible precision, caught it amidships. The smaller vessel exploded in a brilliant fireball that lit up the void. "Impossible," came a stunned transmission from the remaining patrol ships. "A civilian freighter just destroyed one of our escorts." "Tell them it gets better," Garrett said, pulling the ship into another violent maneuver. "Can you hit the second ship's engine manifold?" "Which manifold?" "The glowing part on the back." She was already lining up the shot. Twin plasma beams lanced out, surgical precision. The second patrol ship's engines died in a cascade of sparks inventing atmosphere. It tumbled away, dead in space. "One left," Garrett observed. "Think they're getting nervous?" The third patrol ship broke off, retreating toward the station. Smart choice. Garrett would have done the same, fighting a civilian freighter that fought back like a warship. That killed 2 patrol boats in less than a minute. The stars shifted to lines of light as the Lone Star jumped to hyperspace, leaving Nexus Station and its Imperial forces far behind. In the sudden silence that followed, Garrett realized his life had just changed completely, changed in ways he couldn't begin to process. He'd gone from lonely freight hauler to wanted criminal in the space of an hour. And somehow, looking at her reflection in the viewport, amethyst skin gleaming, silver gaze bright, with something that might have been gratitude, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. "So," he said into the humming quiet of hyperspace, "want to tell me why a warrior goddess ended up in a slaughter auction?" Her laugh was like distant thunder, but warmer this time, less bitter. The Garrett Stone is a very long story. Well, Garrett settled back in his pilot's chair, watching hyperspace flow around them like a river of light. "We've got time." She was quiet for a long moment, studying her hands, the raw marks where the chains had been, the way her fingers moved now without restraint, testing freedom, learning its shape. "My name is Zara," she said finally, her voice softer now, almost vulnerable. "Designation XC7742. Former Squadron Commander Valkyrie Special Operations. Frontier conflicts, age 18 through 22. Garrett turned to look at her. Really look. Not at the size difference or the violet complexion or the brand still glowing faintly on her forehead, but at her, the person behind the designation, behind the chains and the auction block and the mark that said she was meat. 28 years old now. She continued, her mercurial eyes distant, remembering, or trying not to. 6 years since the conflicts ended. 3 years in behavioral modification. 3 more years in detention awaiting processing. And then, she gestured at herself, the auction, the brand, the end, behavioral modification. Garrett's voice went cold. What does that mean? It means they tried to break me. Her smile was razor-edged. Her eyes blazed with old fury. For 3 years they tried everything. Genetic suppression, psychological conditioning, chemical treatments, neural recalibration, anything to make me docile, compliant, suitable for breeding protocols. And it didn't work. No. Her voice carried pride despite everything. Despite the brand, in the chains, in the auction block. It didn't work. So they marked me defective. Aggressive tendencies unsuitable for standard applications. And when you're too broken to breed and too dangerous to control, you become worth more as meat than as a soldier who won't obey. The weight of those words hung in the recycled air. 28 years old, 3 years of torture, 3 years waiting to die, and then a meat market, a slaughter brand, 800 kilograms of premium protein. I'm sorry, Garrett said, knowing the words were inadequate, knowing nothing he could say would undo what had been done to her. Don't be. Zara turned those quicksilver eyes on him, full intensity. For the first time in 28 years, someone looked at me and saw a person. Not a weapon, not livestock, not a problem to be solved. You saw me ready to fight, and you respected it. Do you understand how rare that is? How impossible he did understand. Jesse had been like that. Fierce and unbowed, and refusing to break even when the universe demanded it. She died for that stubbornness. That refusal to surrender who she was just because it was easier, just because it was safer. My sister, Garrett heard himself say. Her name was Jessie. Marine Corps frontier conflicts. She was 24 when she died, covering her unit's retreat. She could have evacuated, could have saved herself, but she stayed, fought, made sure her people got out. Zara was silent, listening with the intensity of someone who understood loss, who knew what it meant to watch the good ones die while the broken ones survived. When I saw you in that cage, Garrett continued, looking ready to fight, even marked for slaughter, you reminded me of her. That same refusal to go down without dignity. That same, he searched for the word, fire. And I thought, maybe I bought you to save me as much as you. I'm not your dead sister's replacement. Zara's voice was gentle but firm. I know. Garrett met her eyes. You're someone who deserves a choice. That's all. No obligations, no expectations. Just freedom to decide what comes next. She stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then slowly, carefully, she reached out. Her massive hand covered his on the armrest, gentle despite the strength that could crush steel, warm despite everything cold and terrible she'd endured. I've never had a choice before, she whispered. What do I do with it? Whatever you want. Garrett turned his hand over, squeezed her fingers. That's kind of the point of freedom. The Lone Star carried them through hyperspace toward an uncertain destination. Behind them lay slavery and death in a life that had never been hers to choose. Ahead lay questions without answers, danger without guarantees, and the terrifying possibility of building something new from the wreckage of what had been. But in this moment, in the quiet humming of the hyperdrive and the soft glow of instrument panels, Zara sat in the co-pilot's chair of a ship that smelled like recycled air and human and home. And for the first time in 28 years, no one was telling her what to be. She looked at her reflection in the viewport. The slaughter brand still glowed red on her forehead, still marked her as condemned, as defective, as meat. But beneath it, her silver eyes held something new, something she barely recognized after so many years without it. Hope. 3 days into their life as galactic fugitives, Zara discovered that living aboard the Lone Star presented certain logistical challenges that no amount of military training had prepared her for. The refresher facilities, for instance, were designed for beings approximately half her size. The galley required her to crouch until her shoulders nearly touched the deck plating. The corridors demanded a permanent hunch that made her spine ache. And the sleeping quarters, well, the sleeping quarters were less quarters and more a storage closet with delusions of grandeur. She stood in the cargo hold, the only space on the ship where she could stand upright, studying the cramped vessel that had become her entire world. Her prison had simply traded bars for bulkheads, chains for claustrophobia. Garrett found her there, coffee in hand, dark circles under his eyes from 3 nights of sleeping in the pilot's chair, while she took the only bunk that might accommodate her frame. He looked exhausted, rumpled, guilty. Morris. He called to the ship's AI, his voice rough with fatigue. Remind me why I thought buying the compact galley model was a good idea. Because, and I quote from your purchasing decision 3 years ago, Morris replied in a perpetually sardonic tone, I'm never going to need space for anyone but me, and maybe a really small pet. Though I must say your definition of small pet has evolved considerably. Zara found herself almost smiling. The AI had a point. Everything okay back there, Garrett called. Your refresher facilities are designed for beings approximately half my size. She kept her voice neutral. Professional, but frustration leaked through anyway. As are your sleeping quarters, your galley, and most of your corridors. Yeah, about that. Garrett winced. Morris, can you fabricate some modifications? I can fabricate many things, Garrett. A miracle is not among them. Perhaps you should have considered these practical matters before purchasing a companion who requires structural engineering just to use basic amenities. She's not a companion. Garrett protested. She's a partner, fellow fugitive. Ah, yes, how romantic. Nothing says partnership like fleeing imperial justice together. Zara emerged from the corridor, ducking so low her shoulders nearly brushed the deck plating. Her lavender skin gleamed with perspiration from the ship's inadequate climate control. Her silver hair had come loose from its improvised tie. She felt disheveled, uncomfortable, dependent. She hated all of it. Your ship, she announced, was clearly designed by someone who believed all sentient life came in one convenient size. Hey, Garrett defended. The Lone Star has character. She's gotten me out of more tight spots than I can count. I can see why. Zara settled carefully onto the cargo hold floor, the only place she could sit upright. Everything about this vessel is a tight spot. Garrett swiveled his chair to face her. Really face her. Not looking up at her height, not intimidated by her size. Just seeing her, the way he had in the auction hall. How long until we reach wherever we're going? About that, Garrett's expression turned sheepish. I don't actually have a destination. I was kind of hoping you might have some ideas. She stared at him. You rescued me without an escape plan. I rescued you with an excellent escape plan. Step 1, buy the girl. Step 2, run really fast. It worked perfectly. And step 3, that's where things get a little improvisational. Morris chimed in helpfully. Garrett's approach to life planning has always been what charitable observers might call organic. Less charitable observers call it dumb luck, Garrett added. But hey, I'm still alive, so something's working. Zara's laugh rumbled through the ship's hull. Low and genuine. Garrett Stone, you are either the bravest being I've encountered or the most spectacularly foolish. Why can't I be both? She considered this with mock seriousness. An excellent point. Though I lean toward foolish given that you spent your life savings on someone who could accidentally step on you. See, that's where you're wrong. Garrett grinned. You're way too coordinated to step on me accidentally. If you wanted to crush me, it'd be completely on purpose. I'll keep that in mind. The banter felt good, natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. But beneath the humor, questions festered. What was she now, passenger, cargo, rescued property? The uncertainty gnawed at her. Garrett, she said, her tone shifting, becoming formal, military. I need to establish something. He straightened, hearing the change. Okay, I'm not your passenger. Her silver stare held his. Unwavering. I'm not your pet. I'm not your rescued charity case. Make me crew or I leave at the next station. Garrett blinked, surprised. You want to work? I'm a warrior. Zara's voice carried steel. I was engineered for combat, trained for command. I led 50 Valkyries in active warfare. I am not built to sit idle while someone else handles everything. She leaned forward, intense. I need purpose, Garrett. I need to contribute. I need to be useful. Or I'll go insane in this cargo hold, wondering what I'm worth now that I'm not meat on a scale. The silence stretched. Garrett studied her face, reading the desperation beneath the demand, the fear that she'd traded one kind of cage for another. That freedom without purpose was just a prettier kind of dying. Then his face split into a genuine smile. Partner it is. Welcome aboard Co-Captain Zara. Something in her chest loosened, unwound. Co-Captain, equal partnership. Garrett extended his hand. You handle weapons, tactical security. I handle piloting, navigation, maintenance. We both handle decisions. Sound fair? She took his hand, her massive fingers engulfing his entirely, careful not to crush, careful to show she could be gentle despite her strength. Fair. Good. Now, Garrett pulled up star charts. Because we're wanted criminals with a crippled ship, limited funds, and the entire Imperial Navy looking for us. We need repairs. We need work. And we need somewhere the Empire doesn't look too closely. Kepler Station, Zara said immediately, her tactical training kicking in. Neutral territory, smuggler haven, no Imperial jurisdiction. You know it. I know everywhere the Empire doesn't want its soldiers going. She smiled darkly, which made those places very interesting to squadron commanders who asked too many questions. Kepler it is. Garrett set the course. 3 days at maximum burn, Think we can avoid detection? That long Zara moved to the sensor console, already familiarizing herself with the systems. I'll make sure we do. And just like that, the dynamic shifted. No longer rescuer and rescued, no longer owner and owned. Two fugitives, two partners, building something new from the wreckage of what had been. The days passed in a rhythm of watches and maintenance. Zara learned the ship's systems with the same intensity she'd once brought to weapons training. Garrett taught her navigation. She taught him combat maneuvers that made the Lone Star dance like a fighter instead of a freighter. They worked side by side, learning each other's rhythms, building trust through shared purpose. But the Slaughter brand still glowed on her forehead, a constant reminder of what she'd been, what the Empire said she was worth. On the second day during a quiet watch, Garrett asked the question she'd been waiting for. "Tell me about the frontier conflicts," he said softly. "About Squadron 7, about who you were before." Zara was quiet for a long moment, staring at the hyperspace stream flowing past the viewport. Finally, she began. "I was 18 when they activated our unit, fresh out of accelerated training, enhanced genetics, tactical programming, weapons certification. We were the Empire's prize experiment. Valkyrie warriors. Unstoppable. Loyal. Perfect." Her voice carried bitter irony on that last word. "They assigned me to Squadron 7 as junior tactical officer. 50 Valkyries, all between 18 and 25, all engineered for war. We deployed to the frontier territories where the Empire was expanding, conquering, taking what they wanted from species too weak to fight back." She paused, her hands clenching. "At first, I was a good soldier, followed orders, didn't question. We secured 12 systems in the first year, pacified resistance, established Imperial control. I was promoted to lieutenant at 19, squadron commander at 22, youngest in Valkyrie history." Pride flickered across her face, then darkened. "But then I started seeing what we were really doing. Not protecting, not defending, conquering, enslaving. The Empire didn't want allies, it wanted property, and we were the enforcers." "What happened?" Garrett asked gently. I questioned in order. Zara's voice went flat. "Simple as that. We were ordered to pacify a settlement. Civilians, families. Our commander said they were harboring insurgents. I did reconnaissance. Found children, elderly, no weapons, no threat. I refused the order. The ship's systems hummed in the silence that followed. My commanding officer gave me a choice: execute the order or be executed myself. So She swallowed hard. "I led my squadron into that settlement, but instead of attacking, we evacuated everyone, got them to neutral space, saved 3,000 lives. The Empire was not pleased. Her smile was bitter. They court-martialed me, stripped my rank. But I'd become too popular with other Valkyries. Too many looked up to me, questioned their own orders. The Empire couldn't execute me without making a martyr. So they tried something else." Zara touched the brand on her forehead. "Behavioral modification. 3 years of trying to break my will. Make me obedient, docile, suitable for breeding protocols. Turn the rebel commander into compliant livestock." "Did anyone try to help you?" Garrett asked. "Your squadron, your friends," most were reassigned, scattered across the Empire. Some, her voice cracked slightly, some chose modification voluntarily. Accepted genetic alterations to become more acceptable, smaller, weaker, more feminine. The Empire rewarded cooperation with rank. Power, safety, I refused. Every treatment, every offer, every compromise. So after 3 years, they gave up, marked me defective, locked me in detention for 3 more years while they decided what to do with a Valkyrie too stubborn to break. Finally, they decided I was worth more as meat than as a warning. Zara's laugh was hollow. Shipped me to Nexus Station. Branded me, prepared me for slaughter. And you know the rest. Garrett was quiet for a long time, processing. Finally spoke. "You saved 3,000 lives, refused to break for 6 years, led 50 warriors in combat. And they called you defective." "Yes, Zara." He turned to look at her directly. "You're not defective, you're extraordinary. And anyone who can't see that is blind." She met his eyes, something warm blooming in her chest, something she didn't have words for yet. Thank you for seeing me, always. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility, with growing awareness that their partnership was evolving into something deeper, something neither had words for yet. Then proximity alarms shattered the silence. The hyperspace jump lasted exactly 47 seconds before alarms screamed through the Lone Star. What the hell? Garrett's hands flew across the console as they dropped back into normal space. Stars wheeled around them. Wrong stars, wrong location. We should be 3 systems away from Nexus. Interdiction field. Zara's voice carried grim recognition. She studied the tactical display with professional assessment. Imperial Navy, they've boxed us in. Massive shapes materialized around them. 3 Imperial destroyers hung in space like metal predators. Their hulls bristled with weapon systems. Smaller patrol craft swarmed between them, cutting off every escape vector. Lone Star, a new transmission crackled across their comm. Not the mechanical precision of patrol captains. This voice carried authority, personal investment, cold satisfaction. This is Admiral Voss Rain aboard the destroyer Retribution. You are surrounded and outgunned. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Zara went absolutely still, her hands frozen on the weapons console, her face drained of what little color Violet's skin could lose. Zara Garrett glanced at her, concerned. You okay? The transmission continued, its words hitting Zara like physical blows. Zara designation XC-7742, Squadron 7 Frontier Conflicts. I remember you, Commander. No. Zara's whisper was barely audible. Not her. Anyone but her. You know this, Admiral Garrett asked, his hands ready on the controls, preparing for whatever came next. The tactical display shifted. A hologram materialized above their console. The Admiral's face. She looked almost human now, smaller than Valkyries should be, more delicate. Genetic modifications smoothing features that had once been sharp with warrior angles. But Zara would have recognized those eyes anywhere. That voice, that way of holding herself like she owned the universe. Vex Zara's voice cracked, disbelief and betrayal warring in her tone. Lieutenant Rain, Admiral Rain now. The hologram smiled, cold and triumphant. I see you remember me, Commander. Or should I say, defective biological asset XC-7742. Garrett watched understanding crash over Zara's face, watched her process the impossible, the unthinkable. Her second in command, her trusted lieutenant, her sister in arms, standing before her now in Imperial Admiral's uniform, hunting her. You were my second in command, Zara said slowly, each word precise, controlled, containing rage that could shatter planets. Squadron 7, Border Patrol. You stood beside me for 4 years. I stood under you, Voss corrected. Her smile sharpened into something cruel. Taking orders from someone too stubborn to see reality, too proud to accept what we were. What we were, Zara's voice rose. We were warriors. We were property, Voss interrupted, her voice cutting. Genetically engineered slaves playing at soldiers. The Empire gave us a choice, Zara, adapt or die. I chose adaptation. The hologram gestured at herself, at the modifications. The smaller frame, the more acceptable appearance. The uniform that said she belonged. 3 years of genetic recalibration. Behavioral modification protocols. Learning to be what they wanted, accepting what we truly were. And look where it got me, she spread her arms. Admiral, command of my own battle group, respect, authority, power. I have everything we dreamed about when we were foolish children playing war. You betrayed your sisters. Zara's words were ice, absolute zero cold. I survived. Voss leaned forward, her face filling the hologram. You could have too, Zara. Could have accepted the breeding protocols, could have taken the modifications, could have had safety, comfort, purpose. But no, Commander Zara had to fight, had to question orders, had to be defective. Her voice dripped venom. How's that working out for you running with a human marked for slaughter? At least when they process you, it'll be quick. More mercy than you deserve for what you cost us. What I cost you, Zara's laugh was bitter. I saved 3,000 lives. You made us look weak, Voss snarled. Made the Empire question whether Valkyries could be trusted. They came down hard after your little rebellion. Stricter protocols, harsher punishments, more modifications. You caused that, Zara. Your pride, your stubbornness, your refusal to accept reality. Garrett had heard enough. The reality you accepted is slavery, he said quietly, but his voice carried steel. She chose freedom. There's a difference. Voss's attention shifted, really seeing Garrett for the first time. The human speaks. Tell me, little man, do you really think you can protect her from me? From the Empire, from herself? You're nothing. I'm the person who sees her as more than a designation number, Garrett shot back, which is apparently something her own sisters couldn't manage. For just a moment, something flickered across Voss's face. Pain, maybe. Regret. Then it hardened back to cold professionalism. You have one chance, Zara, Voss said, her voice formal now. Military, surrender now. I'll ensure your processing is humane, quick, painless. It's more than you deserve, but for old time's sake, I'll give you that mercy. She paused, or run, and I'll hunt you personally. Make it slow. Make you regret every choice that brought you to this moment. Make you wish you'd accepted the breeding protocols when you had the chance. Zara's hands moved across the weapons console, her face settling into battle calm. The expression Garrett was learning meant she'd made her decision. Made her choice. You want me, Lieutenant? Come and get me. It's Admiral now. You'll always be Lieutenant to me. Zara's smile was razor-edged. The woman who chose chains over courage, comfort over conviction, safety over soul. Voss's face twisted with rage. Fire! The destroyers opened up, energy weapons tearing space around the Lone Star. But Garrett was already moving, throwing the ship into a diving roll that brought them dangerously close to a destroyer's hull, close enough to see individual armor plates, close enough that the bigger ship's weapons couldn't track them. Hold on, Garrett shouted, his hands dancing across controls with practiced precision. Zara's plasma cannon spoke, precise shots that carved through the lead destroyer's sensor array like a surgeon's scalpel. Suddenly blind, the massive ship began firing wildly, hitting nothing but empty space and occasionally its own escort craft. Impressive, Voss's voice came through static and weapon fire, but insufficient. I'll see you soon, Commander, and when I do, you'll beg for the mercy of a slaughter auction. You'll wish you'd died on that meat hook. The remaining destroyers tried to box them in, create a kill zone, but Zara coordinated their fire with Garrett's piloting, plasma beams reaching out to cripple engine manifolds, disable weapon systems, create chaos in the Imperial formation. They fought like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. Garrett's flying complemented Zara's shooting. Her tactical instincts anticipated his maneuvers. They moved as one, thought as one, survived as one. Jump, Zara called, then, seeing the opening before Garrett's sensors registered it. He trusted her, pushed the aging hyperdrive to its limits. The stars shifted to lines of light. They escaped. The silence that followed was deafening. Garrett monitored their course, making random jumps, short hops designed to confuse pursuit. Zara sat motionless at her station, staring at nothing, processing betrayal that cut deeper than any physical wound. She was my friend, Zara finally whispered, her voice small, broken. My sister. We fought together, bled together. I trusted her with my life. When I was promoted to squadron commander, I chose her as my second because I knew she'd always have my back. Garrett wanted to say something, anything. But what comfort existed for this kind of betrayal? We used to talk about the future, Zara continued, her words tumbling out now, needed to be said after the conflicts ended. What we'd do, where we'd go. She wanted to see Earth, visit the homeworld of the species that created us. I wanted to travel the outer rim, find new worlds, new purposes. We had plans, Garrett. Dreams. Then they ordered the breeding protocols. Zara's voice hardened. Required all Valkyries to submit to genetic modification. Become smaller, more feminine, more suitable for reproduction. Most refused at first, but the Empire was patient. They offered incentives, rank, power, comfort, safety. One by one, my sisters chose modification, chose to become what the Empire wanted. I watched them shrink, weaken, lose themselves. But I thought Vex would stand with me, thought we'd refuse together, face whatever came, together. What happened? Garrett asked softly. She came to my cell during my second year of behavioral modification. Zara's eyes glistened with unshed tears, told me she'd accepted the protocols, taken the modifications, been promoted to captain for her cooperation. She said I should do the same, that we could rise through the ranks together, have real power, real purpose. I refused, told her she'd betrayed everything we stood for, everything we were. She looked at me like I was insane, like I was the one who'd changed. And maybe she was right. Maybe I was crazy to refuse, to hold on to pride when I could have had safety. Zara, Garrett said firmly, getting her attention, you weren't crazy, you were brave. You chose yourself over their chains. That's not insanity. That's courage. She met his eyes, silver stare swimming with pain. She chose to become their pet, their tool, and now she hunts her own kind to prove loyalty, to prove she's a good slave. Her voice broke. That's what they do. Break us, turn us against each other, make us police ourselves. And it works, Garrett. It works, because here she is, admiral of her own battle group, hunting me, proud of what she's become. Not all of you broke. Garrett reached across the narrow space between their chairs, took her massive hand in both of his. You didn't. No. Zara touched the slaughter brand on her forehead, raw and still glowing faintly. But look where that got me. It got you here, with me, free, making your own choices, building your own future. Garrett squeezed her hand. Would you rather be Admiral Rain safe and comfortable and own Zara was quiet for a long moment, finally shook her head. No, never. I'd rather die free than live as their pet. Then you made the right choice, even if it cost you everything, even if it cost you her. She looked at him, really looked. This human who'd upended his life for her, who saw her as a person when her own sisters saw property, who gave her choice when the universe offered only chains. Thank you for reminding me who I am, who I chose to be. Always, the Lone Star limped toward Kepler Station. Behind them, Admiral Voss Rain regrouped her forces. This time the hunt was personal. This time it was about more than recovering stolen property. This time it was about proving which of them had made the right choice, and neither was willing to back down. Kepler Station materialized ahead of them on the third day, a mechanical tumor of mismatched modules and improvised additions. Ships of every description cluttered its docking bays. Sleek smuggling runners, battered cargo haulers, several vessels that looked assembled from spare parts and sheer optimism. Home sweet home, Garrett muttered, guiding them toward an available berth. This place looks like it was built by committee, Zara observed, her tactical training noting escape routes automatically. A committee of blind engineers with serious architectural disagreements. Hey, don't knock it. Kepler Station has everything we need. No questions asked, repairs available, and a legal system based entirely on not bothering station management. They docked without incident, paid their fees with credits they couldn't afford to spend, made their way through crowded corridors toward the repair facilities. Zara drew stares everywhere. Even in a place like Kepler, where exotic aliens were common, she commanded attention. Popular lady, Garrett observed as they passed a cantina where every conversation had stopped. I get that a lot. Zara moved with fluid grace despite the cramped corridors, though usually the attention involves auction paddles and meat scales. Different kind of place here. People look, but they don't judge. Mostly because everyone's got their own secrets to worry about. They found the repair facility in Section C. The proprietor was a vulpine mechanic with cybernetic arms and the suspicious expression of someone who'd dealt with too many desperate customers. Name's Grit, he said, golden eyes flicking between Garrett and Zara. Heard you need work done. Major work, Garrett confirmed. Hyperdrive motivator weapon systems, life support upgrades. How much? Grit's mechanical fingers tapped calculations. 15,000, maybe 20 depending on what I find when I open her up. I'll give you 10, Zara said, her voice commanding. Military. And you'll do excellent work because we'll be repeat customers. We pay on time, we don't cause problems, and we bring you more business. Or we can take our ship to Torval in Section D, who'll do it for 8, but won't do it well. Grit's ears perked, calculating. Respecting someone who negotiated like a professional, finally nodded. 12,000. But I want half up front. 7,000 now, Zara countered. 5,000 on completion. And we want a list of cargo runs that need quick, quiet transport. We're in the market for work. Garrett watched the negotiation with barely concealed amazement. This was Zara, the squadron commander. Confident, authoritative, natural leadership radiating from every word. This was who she'd been before they broke her, before they tried to make her small. Deal. Grit extended a paw. But you better have those credits. We will. Zara shook, careful not to crush cybernetic bones. We're running a syndicate job, 50,000 payout, enough to cover repairs and then some. Garrett waited until they'd left the repair bay before speaking. When did we agree to run a syndicate job? When I negotiated our repairs. Zara didn't slow her pace. We need money. They pay well. Simple mathematics. Syndicate jobs are dangerous. She stopped, turned, looked down at him with those mercurial eyes. Garrett, I'm a warrior. Danger is my profession. Or do you think I should stay safely aboard while you handle everything? No. You gave me choice. Her voice softened slightly. Now let me use it. This is my decision. Our partnership means I get to choose risk, too. He held her gaze, seeing the determination, the need to prove herself, to be more than rescued, to be more than saved. Fair enough, co-captain. They found work, made contacts, learned the station's rhythms. And eventually, as the third day wore into evening, they found themselves in a cantina called the Broken Chain, a place that catered to beings of unusual size. The tables were adjustable, the ceiling high enough for Zara to stand upright. The bartender, a massive ursoid with artificial eyes, barely looked up when they entered. What'll it be? He rumbled. 2 of whatever won't kill us, Garrett said, settling onto a bar stool that put him roughly at Zara's knee level when she sat beside him. Brave man. The bartender mixed drinks that glowed faintly blue. Most humans specify what species the alcohol should be safe for. Where's the adventure in that Zara accepted her drink? Served in something resembling a small bucket, the liquid tasted of electricity and distant stars. She drank, feeling the warmth spread through her chest, loosening muscles that had been tight for days, years, decades. Can I ask you something? She said quietly. Shoot. Why did you really buy me? And don't say it was just to save me from the meat market. You could have reported the illegal auction. Bought someone smaller, easier to hide. Why me? Garrett sipped his drink, considering his words carefully. When he spoke, his voice carried old pain. Old loss. Honest answer, I'd prefer it. You reminded me of someone I used to know. Jessie, my sister. She was a Marine, 24 when she died in the frontier conflicts. Refused evacuation orders because her unit was pinned down. Could have saved herself, but she stayed, fought, made sure they got out. He paused, staring into his glass. She had that same look you had in that cage. Like the universe could go to hell, but she wasn't going down without a fight. That same fire, that same refusal to break. I'm not your dead sister's replacement, Zara said gently. Don't project grief onto me. I know. Garrett looked up, met her eyes directly. You're someone who deserves choice. That's it. No expectations, no obligations. Just freedom to decide what comes next. And maybe, he smiled sadly, maybe I bought you to save me as much as you. Save you from what? From being alone. From forgetting what it means to care about someone. From thinking safety is better than actually living. Zara was quiet, absorbing this, processing. Finally spoke. I should probably tell you something about my people, about what we really are. I'm listening. The Valkyries weren't just engineered as laborers and breeding stock. We were designed as weapons first. The Empire wanted warriors who could fight multiple enemies simultaneously, survive in hostile environments, follow orders without question, kill without hesitation. Her voice carried old anger, old pride, old grief. When they decided we were more valuable as slaves than soldiers, they tried to breed the aggression out of us, make us docile, compliant, suitable for reproduction instead of warfare. Didn't work so well with you, did it? No. And it got me marked defective. She turned to face him fully. What I'm saying is I'm not some gentle giant who needs protection. I'm a warrior who's been caged her entire life. Traveling with me means danger, Garrett. Real danger. From enemies you can't imagine. From a past that won't let go. From an empire that doesn't forgive. Garrett finished his drink, signaled for another round. Zara, in the past week I've become a fugitive, destroyed Imperial property, joined the ranks of galactic criminals, made an enemy of an Imperial admiral who used to be your sister. If you think I'm worried about a little extra danger, you haven't been paying attention. Her smile was sharp as starlight. Then we understand each other. I think we do. The cantina's atmosphere grew more relaxed. They talked, really talked. Zara shared stories from the frontier conflicts, battles won and lost, sisters who stood together and sisters who fell, the weight of command at 18, the loneliness of being different even among warriors, the 3 years of torture that should have broken her but somehow made her stronger. Garrett listened, not with pity, with respect, understanding, the kind of listening that Jessie used to do before the war took her, before everything went wrong. Question for you, Zara said during a lull in conversation. Do you always make life-changing decisions on impulse? Garrett considered this, his expression thoughtful. Define life-changing, decisions that alter the fundamental trajectory of your existence. In that case, yeah, pretty much always. I joined the Merchant Marine on a dare, bought my ship because I liked the name, moved to the Outer Rim because I was bored with civilized space, he grinned. Bought a warrior goddess at auction because she looked ready to burn the universe down. That explains a lot. What about you? Ever make impulse decisions before me? I'm sitting in a smuggler's cantina with a human who bought me 3 days ago. Zara gestured at their surroundings with wry humor. Planning to transport illegal goods for organized criminals. Planning to build a life as a fugitive. What do you think? I think we make a good team. Her hand, easily twice the size of his, briefly covered his on the bar. Gentle despite the strength that could crush steel. Warm despite everything cold she'd endured. I think you might be right. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility, with the growing awareness that their partnership was evolving into something more complex, something deeper, something neither had words for yet. Then proximity alarms echoed through the station's PA system. Attention all residents and visitors. An official announcement. Cold and bureaucratic. Imperial patrol vessels have entered the system. This is a routine inspection. All ships are to remain docked until further notice. Zara and Garrett exchanged glances, both knowing, both understanding. Think they're looking for us, she asked, though her tone said she already knew the answer. I'd bet every credit we don't have. They paid quickly, moved through corridors with casual haste that didn't quite hide urgency. The station buzzed with nervous energy as word of the Imperial presence spread. Zara felt her military training resurface automatically. Threat assessment, escape routes, combat readiness. Battle calm settling over her like familiar armor. How long until repairs are finished? She asked as they approached the docking bay. Garrett checked his comm. Not long enough. They found Grit working frantically on the Lone Star, sparks flying as he rerouted power couplings with desperate speed. Imperial inspection, he called without looking up, his mechanical hands moving with practiced efficiency. They'll be here within 6 hours. Your ship better be gone before then. How much longer do you need? 4 hours minimum. Maybe 5 if I run into complications. Garrett did the math, didn't like the result, his jaw tight. We're going to be cutting this close. Story of your life, Zara replied, but her hand moved automatically to the weapon at her hip. A plasma pistol they had acquired from Station Black Market. Not her preferred armament from her military days. But better than nothing. Better than helpless. Morris activated his mobile unit, a floating sphere bristling with sensors and manipulator arms. Garrett, I've been monitoring Imperial communications. Bad news. Define bad. They're not conducting routine inspection. Morris's tone carried mechanical concern. They're specifically hunting for stolen biological asset designation XC7742 and her human accomplice. Admiral Rain has dispatched multiple squadrons to search all stations within our operational range. Stolen biological asset. Zara's voice went dangerously quiet, each word precise. Controlled. 28 years and they still see me as property. Not everyone, Garrett said firmly, meeting her eyes. I see you as the most dangerous, most beautiful, most absolutely impossible woman I've ever met. And anyone who sees you as anything less is blind and stupid. She looked down at him. Something warm bloomed in her chest, something she didn't have words for, something that felt like hope and terror and longing all mixed together. Garrett, yeah, when we get out of this, and we will get out of this, remind me to thank you properly. Looking forward to it. The Imperial patrol ships began their systematic approach, circling Kepler Station like predators circling prey, probing every docked vessel, checking every manifest, searching methodically for two fugitives who'd embarrassed them, who'd destroyed their ships, who'd made the Empire look weak. Zara and Garrett prepared for another desperate escape, but this time the stakes felt higher, more personal. This time Admiral Voss Rain was hunting them. This time it wasn't just about escape property. This time it was about which of them had made the right choice all those years ago, and neither was willing to back down. The Imperial dreadnought materialized like judgment incarnate. One moment Kepler Station hung in empty space, free and lawless and safe. The next, the domination dropped out of hyperspace directly above them. A kilometer-long warship that blotted out the stars. Its hull bristled with enough firepower to glass a continent. Around it, like remora around a shark, came the escort fleet. 6 destroyers, 12 cruisers, enough military force to conquer a small system, all for one escaped Valkyrie and the human who freed her. Zara stood at the Lone Star's sensor console, watching the tactical display populate with red hostiles. Her enhanced mind calculated odds with cold precision born from years of military command. 6 capital ships, 18 escorts, perhaps 300 starfighters in their combined bays, against one aging freighter with patched shields and barely functional weapons. The math was simple. Absolute. Terminal. They were going to die here. Kepler Station. The transmission boomed across every frequency, every comm system, shaking the very hull of every docked ship with its authority. This is Admiral Voss Rain aboard the Imperial Dreadnought Domination. You are harboring fugitive criminals. Surrender biological asset designation XC-7742 and her human accomplice immediately. You have 1 hour to comply. Garrett stood beside her, his face pale but determined, his hands already moving toward flight controls. We could run, try to slip away in the confusion. Zara shook her head, studied the tactical overlay with professional assessment. They have us boxed, every escape vector blocked, every docking bay monitored. She pointed at the display with clinical precision. Here, here, here. Patrol patterns overlapping, sensor coverage complete. We'd be dead before we cleared the station. Then what do we do? Before she could answer, the transmission continued, Admiral Rain's voice carrying personal venom now. Be advised. Failure to comply will result in the destruction of Kepler Station and all vessels currently docked. 10,000 beings will die. Their blood will be on your hands. You have 1 hour. The station's emergency channel exploded with panic. Voices screaming, demanding, blaming, station management broadcasting on repeat. Fugitives aboard vessel Lone Star Bay 94. Please surrender immediately. Please, we have families, children. Please. Garrett's hands clenched into fists. They're going to kill everyone. 10,000 people. Because of us. Because of me, Zara corrected. Her voice steady despite the cold settling in her chest. Despite the weight of 10,000 lives pressing down on her shoulders. I'm what they want. I'm what this is about. Not you, not them, me. She turned to face him fully, her silver eyes calm, resolved, military, commander making the hard choice. I won't let innocents die for me, Garrett. I'm done running. I'm done hiding. I'll surrender like hell. Garrett's voice cracked like a whip, sharp and final. You surrender and they process you. Live dismemberment for scientific study. You know that? Protocol 779. You told me about it. Better than 10,000 deaths. No. He grabbed her arm with both hands, barely spanning the width of her wrist, his grip desperate. It's not better. It's not acceptable. We find another way. There is no other way. Zara kept her voice gentle, patient, placed her massive hand over his small one, engulfing it completely. This is my choice, Garrett. You gave me that. Freedom to choose. Now let me use it. Let me choose to matter. To save them. To die for something instead of nothing. Not like this. The countdown timer glowed on every screen. 53 minutes remaining. Each second ticking away lives. Each moment bringing death closer for 10,000 beings who'd done nothing wrong except be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Zara pulled away gently but firmly, moved to the cargo hold, began strapping on her armor, the form-fitting suit that had somehow survived the auction house processing. Black and silver and designed for war. Garrett followed, desperate, searching for arguments that didn't exist, for solutions that wouldn't come. There has to be something, some way out, some legal loophole or tactical advantage or... She cut him off, gentle but firm, her voice carrying finality. Garrett, I've lived 28 years, most of them in cages, 3 years being tortured, 3 years waiting to die. If I go now, at least it means something. At least I choose, at least I save people instead of watching them burn because I was too cowardly to do what needed doing. Wait. She paused, hand on her chest plate, something in his voice, something sharp, something desperate and brilliant, impossibly insane. Garrett was staring into space, his eyes unfocused, mind racing through possibilities at light speed, legal databases, treaties, protocols, searching for the loophole, the exception, the way out that shouldn't exist but might. When he spoke, his voice carried the edge of desperate inspiration. What if you weren't a biological asset anymore? What the legal designation? That's what lets them process you. Biological asset, property. But what if legally you were something else, something they couldn't touch? Zara studied him, saw the plan forming behind his eyes. Something insane, something impossible, something that might actually work if the universe had any justice left. What are you thinking, marriage? The word hung in the recycled air. Heavy, impossible, absurd. Zara blinked. Processing. Marriage. Article 47 of the Interspecies Marriage Treaty. Garrett pulled up the legal database with shaking hands, his fingers flying across the interface. Searching, finding, reading aloud. Legally wed spouses cannot be processed as biological assets regardless of species or circumstances of acquisition. And Earth colonial law grants automatic citizenship to spouses of human nationals. He looked up at her, his expression intense, desperate, hopeful. If we got married right now, you'd become a Terran citizen. Full legal protections. The Empire would have no jurisdiction. They'd have to go through Terran Federation diplomatic channels. Start an interstellar incident. Risk war over one person. They won't do it. Zara processed this rapidly, her tactical mind examining angles, probabilities, implications, running scenarios. It could work. Legally, it's sound. The treaty's been tested before. But what? She turned away, unable to meet his eyes, unable to let him see the hope blooming in her chest, the desperate wanting. But I won't trap you in a marriage of convenience. You deserve better than a desperate legal maneuver with someone who could accidentally kill you just by rolling over in your sleep. Zara, you've already sacrificed so much. Her voice cracked slightly. Your savings, your freedom, your safety, your entire life. I won't ask you to sacrifice your future too. Won't ask you to chain yourself to damaged goods, to defective property marked for slaughter. Look at me. She didn't, couldn't, because if she looked at him, she might hope, might believe, might want something she had no right to want, something she'd never let herself dream about. Garrett moved around to face her, had to step up on a supply crate just to reach her eye level, just to make her see him. His hands framed her face with infinite gentleness, warm and human and real. I'm going to say this once, so listen carefully. His voice was steady, certain, absolute. I don't want better. I don't want convenient. I don't want safe. I want you, Garrett. 2 weeks ago, I was alone, going through the motions of living without actually being alive, hauling cargo from system to system and telling myself it was enough, telling myself safety was better than risk, comfort better than connection. Then I met a warrior goddess in chains who looked ready to burn the universe down rather than surrender. And everything changed. His thumbs traced her cheekbones with exquisite care, careful of the brand still glowing faintly. You made me remember what it means to care, to fight for something, to actually live instead of just surviving. You made me remember Jesse, remember who I used to be before grief made me small. He smiled, that reckless grin she was learning to love. So no, this isn't sacrifice. This is the best decision I've ever made. This is me choosing to stop being alone, choosing to be part of something bigger than cargo manifests and empty corridors. Tears formed in Zara's silver eyes, the first she'd allowed herself in years. But you don't have to. I want to. His voice rang with certainty, with joy despite everything. So here's the question. Co-Captain Zara, will you marry me? Not like this. She pulled back, her voice fierce. Commissioning, if I marry you, it won't be because I need saving. It won't be out of gratitude or desperation or tactical necessity. It won't be because 10,000 lives hang in the balance. Then why? Because I choose you. Her voice rang through the cargo hold like a bell, clear and true and absolute. Because you gave me freedom, and I choose to share it with you. Because in 2 weeks you showed me more respect than anyone in 28 years. Because when I imagine a future, if we survive, if we live, if we somehow make it through, you're in it. She took a breath, steadied herself, gathered her courage. So no, Garrett Stone. You don't get to propose to me as a rescue mission. You don't get to frame this as sacrifice or duty or legal strategy. His face fell. Oh, I'm proposing to you. The cargo hold fell silent except for the hum of life support and the distant rumble of the station's reactors and the thundering of Garrett's heart. He stared at her, speechless. Zara knelt with fluid grace, bringing herself to his level. Her hands engulfed his with infinite care. Garrett Stone, will you marry me not for legal protection, not to save anyone, but because I love you, because you're the first person who ever saw me, not a weapon, not livestock, not a problem, just me, because I want to build a life with you, however long or short that life might be. Her silver eyes held his without wavering. You gave me choice. Now I'm making it. I choose you. I choose us. I choose partnership and possibility and whatever future we can build together. Yes or no? For a long moment, he just looked at her, at this impossible woman, this warrior goddess who could tear apart starships with her bare hands, but touched him like he was made of spun glass, who'd survived torture and slavery in the meat market, but somehow still had room in her heart for hope, for love, for him. Yes. His voice was rough with emotion, thick with joy and terror and absolute certainty. Wow. God, yes. I love you. I want this. I want us. I want to build a future where you get to choose every single day, where you're free and safe and valued for exactly who you are. Then we better get married before the Imperial Navy shows up. They found Morris in the ship's computer core, his mobile unit hovering near the main processors, monitoring system, running calculations, probably predicting their imminent death with mechanical precision. Morris, Garrett said, slightly breathless from running, from revelation, from joy. You're licensed as a universal chaplain, right? But among my many certifications, yes. The AI's tone suggested suspicion, though I fail to see the relevance given our current circumstances, which involve imminent destruction and the deaths of 10,000 beings. Can you perform a wedding ceremony? Sensor's word. Processing. Calculating. A wedding. Emergency marriage ceremony under Earth colonial law. Zara confirmed, her voice steady, commanding, immediately. I see. Morris's tone shifted, understanding dawning. That's actually brilliant. Insane, yes. Desperate, certainly. But legally sound and tactically perfect. Though I should note that standard ceremonies typically require witnesses' proper documentation and ideally more than 47 minutes before potential destruction. We'll make it work. Garrett grabbed Zara's hand, squeezed gently. Where do we do this? The cargo hold has the most space for beings of varied size, and given the significance of the occasion, perhaps some attempt at dignity would be appropriate, though dignity is somewhat challenged by the circumstances. They transformed the cargo hold into the galaxy's most unconventional wedding chapel in under 10 minutes. Morris projected formal legal documentation across the bulkheads in glowing blue text. Rusty, the maintenance droid, who usually handled repairs, stood awkwardly in the corner holding a plasma coupling that gleamed under the ship's lights. Something borrowed. Something blue. Something that might explode if mishandled. The station's countdown showed 39 minutes, each second ticking away lives, each moment bringing them closer to death or salvation or something impossible. Dearly beloved, Morris began, his mechanical voice somehow managing gravitas despite the situation. We are gathered here in the presence of Imperial warships in imminent destruction to witness the union of Garrett Stone, human and Zara designation, C-7742, Valkyrie in the bonds of legal matrimony, according to Earth colonial law, and the Interspecies Marriage Treaty of 2341. What the hell is happening over there? Admiral Voss Rain's transmission crackled with confusion and rage. Wedding, Garrett replied cheerfully, despite everything, despite death hanging over them. You're invited to the reception, but we're not serving Imperial officers. This is absurd. You cannot marry stolen property. The union is fraudulent. Actually, Morris interrupted smoothly, with evident satisfaction. According to Imperial Commercial Code Section 7G, biological assets purchased for personal use may be legally wed under applicable interspecies treaties. Furthermore, I have discovered that all documentation filed at Nexus Station was surprisingly entirely correct. Garrett blinked. It was the genetic compatibility waiver you signed. Morris sounded almost amused. That was actually a spousal procurement protocol under the treaty. You've been legally preparing for marriage since the moment you purchased her. All forms properly notarized, all requirements met. The marriage is entirely legitimate. Zara laughed, low and genuine and full of joy despite everything. You saved me by accident. I prefer to think of it as subconscious genius. Garrett Stone. Morris continued the ceremony with mechanical precision. Do you take Zara as your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold in sickness, in health for richer or poorer, in freedom or fugitive status until death or imperial execution do you part? Garrett looked up at Zara. This impossible woman who'd become his entire world in 2 weeks, who made him remember how to live, who chose him when she could have chosen safety. I do. Though I'm hoping we can avoid the execution part. Zara, Morris turned his sensors toward her, floating closer. Do you take Garrett Stone as your lawfully wedded husband, accepting all rights and responsibilities thereof, including but not limited to protection from biological asset processing under Imperial law, choosing freely without coercion or desperation, choosing love over safety, partnership over solitude? This was the moment, the choice, not just marriage but freedom, the decision to be someone's wife rather than anyone's property, to choose connection over safety, to risk heartbreak for the possibility of happiness. I do. Her voice rang clear and certain through the cargo hold. I choose to be the wife of this impossible human rather than anyone's livestock. I choose love over fear, partnership over loneliness, freedom with him over safety without him. Then, by the power vested in me by the Universal Chaplain Licensing Board, Morris proclaimed, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Though I recommend careful positioning given the significant height differential and current tactical situation. Zara didn't wait for logistics, didn't hesitate, didn't calculate angles or worry about practicality. She pulled Garrett close with infinite care, her massive hands cradling him like something precious, fragile, worth protecting. When their lips met, it was soft and sweet and absolutely perfect, despite everything that made it impossible. The kiss tasted of hope and defiance and new beginnings, of two people choosing each other against impossible odds, of freedom earned and love claimed and futures built from wreckage. When they broke apart, alarms were screaming. The countdown showed 22 minutes, but Zara felt something she hadn't felt in 28 years, like she belonged to herself, like she was real. The Terran Federation recognizes your marriage claim. A new transmission, not from Admiral Rain, from a Federation diplomatic vessel that had apparently been monitoring the situation, waiting, watching, ready to intervene. Zara Stone is now a Terran citizen with full diplomatic protection. Refugees are granted safe passage to Federation space. This is not over, Voss Rain snarled, her voice tight with rage, with frustration, with something that might have been envy. The Domination's weapon systems powered up. Targeting lasers painted the Lone Star's hull with malevolent red light. I don't care about your laws or your treaties. She's mine. She was always mine to take. Private channel, Zara said quietly, her voice calm, resolved. To Admiral Rain only. Garrett looked at her, concerned, understanding. Zara, trust me, she needs to hear this. Needs closure. Needs to understand. The channel opened. Voss Rain's face appeared on screen, still beautiful in that carefully modified way, still wearing Admiral's insignia like armor against vulnerability. But Zara could see the cracks now, the exhaustion beneath the rage, the emptiness beneath the pride, the loss beneath the hate. Come to beg, Commander Voss's voice dripped mockery, trying to hide pain, how the mighty have fallen, how the proud have been humbled. No. Zara's voice was calm, almost pitying. I came to say goodbye, to the woman you used to be, to the sister I lost when you chose chains over courage. Voss flinched, almost imperceptibly, but Zara saw it. I remember Lieutenant Vex Rain. Zara continued, her words gentle but relentless. 24 years old, brilliant tactician, loyal sister. You saved my life twice in the frontier conflicts. Carried wounded soldiers to safety when you could have left them. Questioned orders when they were wrong. Fought for what you believed in. That woman was weak. That woman was brave. Zara interrupted. Voice firm but not cruel. She had a spine, had principles, had a soul. Then they offered you a choice. Break or die, and you chose to break. She leaned closer to the screen, meeting Voss's eyes directly. You let them make you smaller, weaker, more acceptable. You betrayed your sisters, hunted your own kind, all for what? A rank, a uniform. The privilege of being their favorite pet. Voss's hands clenched, trembling. I have power. I have authority. You have a leash, Zara said gently, with infinite compassion. Just prettier than mine was. Longer chain, better cage, but still a leash, Vex. You're still theirs, still controlled, still performing for approval like a trained animal. She reached up slowly, deliberately, drew the plasma torch from her belt with steady hands. Watch closely, Lieutenant. Watch what real freedom looks like. What choosing yourself means. What are you? Zara pressed the torch to her forehead. To the slaughter brand that marked her as defective, as worthless, as meat. To the symbol of everything they tried to make her, everything she'd refused to become. The pain was immediate, excruciating, beyond anything she'd experienced even in 3 years of torture. She screamed, couldn't help it, couldn't contain it. The brand melted, bubbled, seared, blackened, became scar tissue across violet skin. The smell of burning flesh filled the cargo hold. Through the agony, she watched Voss's face, saw the Admiral's mask crack like glass under pressure, saw tears forming, saw recognition of what had been lost, what could never be recovered, what they'd both sacrificed in their different ways. When Zara finally lowered the torch, her hands shook violently, sweat poured down her face, burns covered her forehead where the brand had been, but the glowing red letters were gone, replaced by proud scars, by marks she'd chosen, by freedom earned through pain. I don't need their mark anymore, she said through gritted teeth, voice raw but triumphant, because I know who I am. I'm Zara Stone, warrior, wife, squadron commander, sister to those who still remember what courage means. Free woman. She met Voss's eyes directly, unflinching. Do you know who you are, Vex, underneath the modifications, underneath the rank, underneath the performance? Who are you? Voss stared, silent, broken, tears streaming down her carefully modified face. The Admiral's moxie completely shattered. For just a moment, Zara saw her sister again. The woman who'd stood beside her, who'd laughed and fought and dreamed of futures that would never come. Maybe someday you'll remember, Zara said softly, with infinite compassion. The woman you were before they broke you, before you chose safety over soul, before you traded everything you were for everything they wanted. I hope you do, Lieutenant, because that woman, She deserved better than this. Voss's voice was barely a whisper, cracking. I can't go back. They'd execute me, then die free, Zara said simply, with absolute certainty. Better than living as their puppet, better than hunting your sisters, better than pretending the cage is choice because it's prettier than mine was. A long silence. Voss staring at Zara's scarred forehead, at the place where the brand had been, at the evidence that freedom was possible, that choice existed, that another way remained. Finally, Voss spoke, her voice small, broken, lost. I'm sorry, Zara. I'm so sorry for all of it, for not standing with you, for choosing wrong, for becoming what they wanted, for hunting you, for everything. I know. Zara felt tears streaming down her own face now, mixing with sweat and blood from her burns. I forgive you, Vex. My sister, my friend, I forgive you. The transmission held for another heartbeat. Two women who'd once been sisters, now on opposite sides of a war that never should have been, connected by shared past, separated by different choices, united by understanding. Then Voss closed her eyes, drew a shaking breath. The domination is withdrawing. Her voice was hollow, automated. You're free to go. Both of you, I'm clearing all charges, revoking pursuit orders. You're not fugitives anymore. Thank you, Vex. It's Voss now, but her voice carried no conviction. You'll always be Vex to me, my sister, my friend, the woman I hope you'll remember how to be. The channel closed. Zara sat back heavily, exhausted, burned, but lighter than she'd felt in years, decades. She'd confronted her past, forgiven her betrayer, reclaimed her identity, removed their mark, chosen her future. And somehow, impossibly, she'd freed them both. Garrett caught her as she swayed, guided her carefully to the deck. Let me see. His hands gentle on her face, examining the burns with worried eyes. The brand was gone, replaced by scar tissue, raised and proud across her forehead. She touched it gingerly, testing, her fingers coming away clean. No blood, just burns and new skin forming. Just scars she'd chosen, just marks that meant freedom. How does it look? She asked, her voice hoarse from screaming, like a survivor. Garrett pulled her close as their size difference allowed, like someone who refused to let anyone else define her. Like the bravest person I've ever met. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. They sat together on the cargo hold floor. Newly married, newly free, scarred but alive. Outside, the Imperial fleet jumped to hyperspace, one by one, leaving Kepler Station and its residents safe. 10,000 beings going about their business, unaware of how close they'd come to death. So, Garrett said after a while, his voice gentle, Mrs. Stone, what do we do now? Zara leaned her head against his shoulder. Carefully, always careful not to crush him. Now we live. We work. We help others who need the choice I got. And we figure out this marriage thing as we go. Sounds like a plan. It's not much of a plan. I specialize in not much of a plan. It's kind of my thing. Her laugh rumbled through his bones, warm and genuine. I know. It's why I married you. 6 months later, Zara stood at the helm of the New Horizon, the ship they'd designed together, built together, paid for with salvage runs and syndicate contracts and one very lucrative exclusive deal with the Terran Trade Commission. The bridge was built for 2 scales, dual controls, adjustable seats, everything accessible, everything perfect. Their ship, their home, their future. Stone and Associates Interstellar Freight. The name displayed proudly on the hull in letters visible from orbit, though everyone in 6 sectors knew it by another name. The Underground Railroad, the rescue operation that pulled defective Valkyries from auctions, that gave refugees safe passage, that said no to the Empire's definition of property. Incoming transmission, Morris announced from his position at communications. Terran Trade Commission, they're offering an exclusive contract, 50 million credits over 3 years with performance bonuses. Garrett whistled from his pilot station. That's serious money, real respectability. It's also serious responsibility. Zara studied the offer with practiced assessment. Question is, do we want to become respectable? Perish the thought. though 50 million credits would fund a lot of rescue operations. Exactly what I was thinking. In the cargo bay below, another refugee was settling in. A young Valkyrie marked defective aggressive tendencies, branded for slaughter, terrified, lost, not sure who she was without orders, without cages, without someone telling her what to be. Zara went to meet her, moving through corridors built to accommodate her frame. No more ducking, no more hunching, no more making herself small. She knelt to bring herself level with the girl who flinched away instinctively. Slowly, gently, Zara reached up, touched the scars on her forehead where the slaughter brand had been. Proud marks, chosen marks, freedom earned through pain. "See this?" she said softly. "I was marked for death, told I was broken, defective, worth more as meat than as a person." The girl's eyes widened, silver like all Valkyries, but young, so young. Now Zara smiled. "I run my own company. I'm married to a man I love. I choose my path every day. I help others like you. Like me, like all of us, they tried to break." She extended her hand, massive but gentle. "You can too. First choice. Stay with us or go your own way. Your decision. No wrong answer. No judgment. Just choice." The girl stared at the offered hand, at the scars, at the evidence that freedom existed. That choice was real, that futures could be built from wreckage. Then slowly, carefully, she took Zara's hand. "Stay." Her voice was barely a whisper. "If that's okay, if you'll have me." "More than okay," Zara squeezed gently. "Welcome aboard. Welcome home." Garrett appeared in the doorway, watched his wife, still amazing to think that word helped the newest refugee settle in. Watched her move with confidence and grace. Watched her radiate the kind of strength that came from knowing exactly who you were. His heart swelled with something beyond love. Something like pride and joy and absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice. Zara caught his eye across the cargo bay. Smiled, that brilliant, fierce smile that meant she was exactly where she wanted to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. "Thank you," she mouthed silently across the distance, "for that first choice, for everything." He nodded, smiled back. "Worth every credit, every risk, every impossible moment." The New Horizon jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew toward the next rescue, the next adventure, the next impossible mission. Behind them lay slavery and death in a galaxy that said some beings were property, some lives didn't matter, some choices weren't allowed. Ahead lay freedom, choice, and the terrifying, beautiful possibility of building something better. One rescue at a time, one choice at a time, one life at a time. Zara stood at her helm, scars proud on her forehead where a brand used to be, violet skin glowing with confidence. Garrett beside her at his station, equal partner, her husband, her choice, her future. Together they faced the universe, and the universe, recognizing true strength when it saw it, had the wisdom to step aside. 3 years later, a transmission reached the New Horizon from an unknown source, encrypted with old Valkyrie Squadron protocols that shouldn't exist anymore, that should have been purged from all Imperial databases. Zara opened it alone in her quarters, not because she didn't trust Garrett, but because she recognized the encryption pattern, knew who it had to be, needed to face this moment privately. The hologram appeared, smaller than Zara remembered, tired, wearing civilian clothes instead of Admiral's uniform, hair cut short, scars visible on her neck where modification ports had been removed, but standing straight, standing proud, standing free. "Commander." Vex, not Voss anymore, never Voss again saluted, not the Imperial salute, the old Valkyrie one, fist to heart, the gesture of warriors who chose each other, who stood together, who refused to break. "I wanted you to know," Vex continued, her voice steady but emotional. "I resigned my commission, refused modification maintenance, removed the compliance implants. They'll be hunting me now, like they hunted you, like they hunt all of us who remember what we were meant to be." She smiled, sad but genuine, real in a way the Admiral's smile had never been. "Took me 3 years to find the courage you had in 3 seconds. But I'm free now, really free, not just claiming freedom while serving masters." Actually free, she paused, gathering courage, and I'm helping others. Quietly, carefully, following your example. There's an underground now, Valkyries who remember, who refuse modification, who choose themselves. We're small, we are scattered, but we're growing. Her voice strengthened. You were right, about everything. Death-free is better than life in chains. Choice matters more than safety. Pride matters more than comfort. I just, she swallowed hard. I wanted to say thank you for showing me that, for forgiving me when I didn't deserve it, for being the sister I should have been. Her hand touched her chest over her heart. Stay safe, Commander. Maybe someday when the war is truly over, when the Empire falls or changes or dies, we'll meet again. As sisters, not enemies, not hunter and hunted, just two warriors who found their way home. The hologram flickered, almost faded, then returned for one more moment. And Zara, I'm proud of you, of who you are, of who you've always been. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it, to understand, to choose courage over comfort. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I'd given up on myself. The transmission ended. Zara sat in the dim glow of her quarters, tears streaming down her face, but smiling, really smiling, because she'd done it, not just freed herself, she'd freed her sister too, had planted seeds of resistance that were growing, spreading, becoming something bigger than one woman's choice. The circle was complete, the mission was clear, the future was possible. Garrett found her there an hour later, took one look at her face and understood, sat beside her without speaking, just present, just there, just loving her the way she deserved to be loved. She showed him the message, watched him watch it, saw pride bloom across his face, saw understanding, saw the same hope she felt. She's free, Zara said quietly. Finally free, because of you. Garrett took her hand, because you showed her another way, because you chose courage, because you refused to break. We both did. Zara squeezed his fingers gently. You freed me, I freed her. She'll free others, and maybe eventually we free them all. One choice at a time, one life at a time. They sat together in comfortable silence. Partners, spouses, warriors, free beings building a future where choice existed, where freedom mattered, where beings decided their own worth. Outside, the stars wheeled in their ancient dance, indifferent to human struggles, indifferent to Valkyrie rebellions, indifferent to empires that rose and fell like waves on shores of time. But somewhere in that vast universe, beings were choosing freedom, were refusing chains, were becoming more than what they were made to be. And at the heart of it all, a warrior with scars where a brand used to be, a woman who'd been marked for slaughter and chose to live, a wife who'd found love in the most impossible place, a sister who'd never given up on redemption. Zara Stone stood at her helm, facing the infinite, choosing her path, building her future, free.